right, we'll call the meeting to order. Jen, you want to take a roll call?
Commissioner Dozer?
Here.
Commissioner Erickson?
Here.
Commissioner Waldner?
Here.
Commissioner Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Lindsay?
Here. Okay, you have attached the minutes for the August 5th meeting. Is there any additions or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have in front of you the August 12th agenda for this evening, and that, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask that we simply remove item number 2 under new business. That will be back next week in a slightly different form, but we shouldn't and really can't act on that tonight.
Very good. So with the removal of this and that, are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes?
Agenda.
If not, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes with number 2 removed.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, appearances, acknowledgements, and correspondence. We have the July building permit report attached. Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve the July building permit report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Chad Rasmussen is here from DGR Engineering on the EPA NESHAP compliance requirements for the generating plant. So if you would step up to the mic, sir, we would really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Again, my name is Chad Rasmussen with DGR Engineering, and Chad and Dennis asked me to come and spend a few minutes with you folks tonight to kind of go over the project that is being contemplated, the reasons for the project, I guess, and possibly the process going forward if you choose to proceed with the project. So I'll start out first with some explanation on why this project is needed, and basically EPA, federal EPA, about 3+ years ago came out with some new requirements for standby generation, basically, that required that emissions be reduced by a certain amount. The actual requirements are that you reduce the carbon monoxide level output in the emission stream by either 70% or down to 23 parts per million. Even so, what that means is even newer engines that don't have very much emissions like yours, there's still some amount of emission reduction that needs to be put in place to meet that criteria. At the time that the rules came out, you could make a choice as to whether you were going to declare your engines as what's called emergency only, or not. And what emergency only means is that you would operate them truly only in an emergency situation, or in a situation where you're exercising the engine like once a month or whatever. Or for folks like yourselves and mostly municipals in the region that are attributing their generation to power supply contracts. In your case, it's with Basin, they're getting payments for that generation output, that's how you pay for that facility. That's all null and void. You can't declare them as emergency only generation. Several groups, Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities, Minnesota Municipal, MMUA also have fought with the EPA on this over the last couple of years, unfortunately unsuccessfully. So most people have been kind of waiting in the weeds as long as they could to do those improvements because they feel that, what are we really getting out of this investment? It's not very much, especially considering like yourselves where you don't generate very much, the level of pollution reduction is not going to have that big of an impact really. However, to no avail. So the latest, I guess, date that we have as a deadline is May 3rd of 2014, and that is already after considering that you applied for a 1-year extension. The original date was May 3rd of 2013. So if after May 3rd of 2014 you're not in compliance with the new regulations, you would be subjected to being out of compliance with those regulations and fines and so forth that go with that. Okay, so any questions, I guess, on the requirements? That's kind of in a nutshell what it boils down to. It's not the type of project that, you know, we feel good about, you know, spending a bunch of money on, obviously. You'd rather see something that your customers are gonna get benefit from, like, you know, a distribution conversion project or something like that. But unfortunately, the EPA has everyone's your situation's hands tied, and we have to meet those requirements. So with that, Chad and Dennis did ask us to put together a proposal for engineering services, to bring the, to put a project together to bring the plant into compliance with the requirements. So we've done that. Basically what it means in terms of the project is that you have to add what's called an oxidation catalyst, which is similar to the catalytic converter on your car, if you will, but it's just a lot bigger. So the pipes coming out of those big engines are 18 inches in diameter, if you will. Oxidation catalyst is even bigger than that. It has a bunch of precious metals in it. The emissions, as they go through a process that takes the carbon monoxide out of the exhaust stream, and that's how it works. So you have to basically put this big oxidation catalyst in the exhaust stream of each individual engine. In addition to that, there has to be a control system that's connected in with sensors to keep track of the temperature of the exhaust, to make sure that the thing working like it's supposed to, and that thing continuously monitors and everything is running. The requirement that you submit reports on that information along with your permitting stuff. Also, the crankcase ventilation system on the engines is presently a pipe that runs outside the building to handle the crankcase exhaust. That needs to be retrofitted with what's called a closed loop crankcase ventilation system, so it runs it back into the engine instead of emitting that into the atmosphere. So those are the physical improvements that need to be made. The typical process for that is that we would go out for bids on first the materials, the large materials, which make up most of the cost of the project. Subsequent to that, after, depending on whose equipment is being supplied, you tailor the design to that equipment, and then go out for bids on the construction piece where it would be installed, mostly mechanical work to come in and install the oxidation catalyst and associated equipment. So we put together an engineering proposal with the design and bidding and construction administration services typical of a project that we've done for your electric department and other aspects of the system. That's kind of the nutshell, I guess. I ran over quickly the highlights. I'd be happy to answer any questions or details that you might have, I guess.
Okay, on the catalytic converter, basically, will that lengthen the time that we have to run the engines to bring that up to temperature?
No.
So it will still come up to temperature even when the generator is under load, because typically a diesel engine runs colder than a gasoline engine.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't have an impact on the operations of the engines per
Okay.
se.
Okay.
And a lot of time it would take to get up to speed to be able to serve the load.
Okay.
Good question.
And just FYI in that, you know, the commission here has been kept up to speed, and that by Denny and Chad and that,
Sure.
so we're all well aware of what you're talking about. And it is one of those things in that we too would like them to look at how we're using it, rather than, you know, they set it at the 100 hours. Well, we don't get to the 100 hours, but because the contract says, you know, that's the part that you know, that we're stuck with, so.
Yeah, well, I completely understand and sympathize with that. The one thing I would caution, I guess, is that, you know, Chad and Dennis kind of asked, how late can we delay a decision on this? I kind of gave them an answer, well, I think if we know the next month or two, you know, you could probably still get the project done, okay? You might be able to extend it beyond that, but the thing that you're running into is risk of not having the materials available in time and/or contractors. You know, there is a lot of work going on. Just due to the number of projects that are out there, so.
I was just gonna ask you that next. How many other projects like this that do you know are on the horizon for this near or same deadline?
Basically, anyone that has generation plants like yourselves, we're working for at least 20 people, or 20 clients, municipal clients that are doing the same project. Most of them were farther along in the process, so been out for bids on a lot of materials and even the construction. Some of them are actually done with construction at this
Okay.
point too. So depends on where you're at in the process. There are some of those we haven't started yet either. But you're getting it to that point in the next couple of months where I start to get nervous, I guess, if you haven't started it and want to meet the deadline.
Okay.
I know we're considering the agreement, Mr. Mayor, but I was looking at the project timing on the sheet that's in your services agreement. It talked, this, as I read it, it was, if you started on July 22nd of 2013, which we passed, with all the dates in here, we're still looking at an October 30th date,
October 30th of 14 or 13?
14,
14.
because it says July,
Oh, but that's after it's done in the testing, right?
no, there's a formal compliance stack testing in July. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, let me explain that.
Yeah.
The May 3rd requirement is actually for having the physical improvements completed. So the testing can occur anytime 6 months.
Okay,
after.
that was my question.
Yep,
All right.
good question. So you actually have 6 months after the May 3rd to complete all the final testing.
Okay, because I just, the dates were after that, so I was just wondering. Thank you.
And that testing is after the fact, is just basically is to make sure the equipment is meeting the requirements.
Exactly, it's a certified test that you have
Yep.
to do to prove that the improvements do in fact meet the requirements.
So, now, are we doing an emissions test before we even start the project, so we can say we've improved it this much?
That's another good question. The answer to that is, we're not sure yet. I would expect that we would probably do one on one or two engines, what we call a design test, so that you get a sense of how much emissions reduction is necessary. For your type of engine, we have a pretty good feel for it based on other plants with similar equipment. So you wouldn't have to do the test. To do what's called a certified test is much more expensive than what's called like a design test. So that's why we would just do that one.
Okay.
What we'd recommend is just doing that one anyway. And with that information, we can give the catalyst manufacturers the parameters that they need to make sure that everything is met. We could do it without that test too, but we feel more comfortable doing that design test. It's about, I think, about $5,000 to do that design test. Whereas, on a couple of engines, whereas for a certified test, it's probably more like $5,000 per engine. Just to have a feel for what those tests cost.
Okay. Other questions or discussion?
It helped that we've already had a tour of the place and actually physically have seen the building, the engines, you know, that just gives us a good picture of what we're up against. And
Sure.
while
Dennis,
I-
do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, it's pretty much, like you said,
Okay.
you're kind of stuck. Where do you
Yeah.
Yeah,
go and how long do you dare wait?
Well, I guess what's running, and I did interrupt you, and I'm
Nope,
sorry.
Nope, you're fine, I'm
I guess,
just gonna actually say what Denny just said is,
Mhm.
you know, I think we need to get going on it because we're gonna have to do it anyway, so let's,
that was my next question is, is there any reason for us not to move forward? Since we
Yeah.
know it's coming anyway, and we have put it off a year already.
let's not get stuck in May and then have to go beg for another continuance and everything also.
Do we have this factored into the budget
It is
for
Okay.
2014 or 13?
this study or the, no,
Or
I don't believe
the-
the study cost would be half of 2013, I believe Chad and I decided in half 2014. So
And-
no,
and
it's
we have
not.
got some money for 13 for the study part. but
Some
the main-
overages.
The main, yeah, the
Yeah, we have
main
to-
part's gonna be 14.
We have to factor that in.
Yeah, you wouldn't be spending serious dollars till 2014 in terms of when you'd be paying for the capital improvements. The actual construction work as well as the delivery of the equipment would occur in 2014.
Okay, and then I've got a question here, and that, for you, as long as we're talking on this. A number of months ago, and that I met with the Department of Revenue, and one of the things in that they said that will help cities is that point of delivery for taxes is Madison in any contracts we put together. And that brings the revenue into Madison rather than the contractors, wherever they take possession, paying the sales tax to other cities. Have you worked with this in your contracts before?
Oh, certainly.
Okay. I guess that's one of the things in that I would ask, that you make sure that happens, that point of delivery for tax purposes is Madison, South Dakota.
Good point.
Any other discussion? So do we have a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with DGR Engineering for the EPA NES HAP compliance requirement contract.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we, all those in favor signify by saying aye? Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Chad.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Further questions anytime.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Seeing no old business, new business, discuss the compliance requirements and consider authorizing, and I think that just is the motion that was just made.
Yep.
So that one has already been taken care of. The next thing on the item of the agenda is personnel, and we have a couple attached personnel matters. Any discussion?
I'll move to approve the personnel as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next we have an executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. I declare that we are now in executive session.